Michael Steele, welcome back, my friend. It's nice to be on this side of the microphone, asking you the questions, not being asked the questions. Look, the hour goes by, unfortunately, way too fast here on Mea Culpa, so I'm going to jump right into it. Hey, Mike, let's start with this breaking news. Trump is telling the Senate to go nuclear on the filibuster to end the shutdown. But this isn't about reopening the government. It's about consolidation of power. What does it say to you that he's willing to torch a 175-year-old Senate guardrail to get his way?
It's not a question of whether Trump is willing to do that. Trump, of course, we know Trump is willing to do that. You know, he's an ass. He doesn't give a crap about Senate protocol and tradition and precedent and all of that. What it says a lot about is whether or not Republicans are willing to do that. They have the majority. And they bitched and moaned and whined when Democrats threatened to do that during the Biden years. But for Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema, it probably would have happened then because, you know, of the deadlock that was occurring around the programs that Biden wanted to get through. Every president has pushed for that with respect to their agenda. Every Senate minority has balked at it, but the majority has never moved it. This is different. This Senate, like the House, they're worse than sycophants. They are complicit in the deconstruction of our government. They are complicit in the tearing up of our Constitution. And they are complicit in the, disregard for norms and precedents, as you rightly put it, that are guardrails, for how we function. So, that doesn't surprise me. It will not surprise me, and notice I didn't say when Senate Republicans, go and blow up the filibuster. And then proceed. But here's the thing. All of these actions, and we may talk about this, all of these actions are functioning, Michael, as if Donald Trump is not leaving office. You don't build a 90,000 square foot mausoleum to yourself, right? That's almost twice the footprint of the entire White House.
3 times.
Right. And it's 55,000. The White House is 55,000
I think it's
square
30,
foot.
isn't it 33,000 square feet?
No, it's the White House. The White House is 55,000 square feet.
Even after they demolished the East Wing?
Not now. That's the point.
My point.
And so, well, the physical building, not the wings. The wings are extension, but the building itself is 55,000 square feet. But that's irrelevant. What's relevant is the fact that they, are building this thing. They've allowed it to happen. You have Bannon out here talking about we've got a plan for a Trump third term. This man doesn't plan to leave because he knows when he does, he actually has a court date in jail waiting for him. Remember, he's a 34 times convicted felon. I don't think the state of New York has said, okay, my bad. That doesn't count. There are signs here that the country needs to be made aware of. And to your point, I'm not worried about what the White House is going to do. What concerns me is what the Senate Republicans and House Republicans will allow them to get away with.
Well, look, you've been inside that machine, chair of the RNC. You know how these gears grind. When a president demands a constitutional shortcut, are we watching governing or are we watching a coup in slow motion?
Well, in normal environments, Mike, this would be a governing question, because there wouldn't be anything else that would advance another argument different than Republicans don't know how to govern. Republicans haven't known how to govern since George Bush. They have not governed every time they've had the majority or had the power that they have now, with the White House included in that mix. They have not advanced any bill except for tax cuts for very, very wealthy people. That's it. That is it. They dole out a lot of cash, and there are some institutions that have really appreciated, from HBCUs to some other programs. But even now in this environment, that cash is being taken away because they need to pay for the for the cuts that they've made on taxes. So in a normal situation, this would be a governing question. They can't govern, so they're finding shortcuts to get their way. They the idea of compromise, the idea of actually, because you need the votes of the minority, because you don't have a supermajority in the Senate, that you sit down in the table and you work it out. But because of all these other actions, my friend, the shit that you've laid out very clearly, that I've talked about very clearly, that is antithetical to governance. This is coup material. This is now crossed that threshold where this action can only be interpreted in no other way but that. It's simply that for me. Now, there'll be others out there in MAGAverse who'll go, you go hyper. No, but dude, I'm looking at the behavior. I don't really pay attention to what Donald Trump says. You know better than all of us. You don't listen to what the man says. Watch what he does, because that tells you what his thinking and his heart is, and what his intent is. His words, he'll say shit just to say it, just to placate you and make you feel like he's listening to you and make you feel like your thing is his thing. It ain't. That's not how he works. So what you look at, though, is his actions. And what we're seeing is actions that tell us he ain't going nowhere, and that he now wants to begin to cement that by having the Senate blow up its own rules for his benefit.
I said that in my Substack, and I'm just going to make a quick quote onto it because I agree with you. And I have said it again and again and again. When he starts putting out merchandise, Trump 2028, he's not doing it to troll Chuck Schumer. He's not doing it to troll Hakeem Jeffries. Here's what I write. It means, it means he rewires the very nature of the Senate. It means that every future president inherits a streamlined, unchecked chamber where laws can be rammed through without consensus. It's the political equivalent of removing the brakes because you don't like how slowly the car stops. Let me be crystal clear. You're 100% correct. He has no intention of leaving because he knows that the next guy who comes in, especially if it's going to be a Democrat, is going to undo everything and put him, his family, all of these acolytes, sycophants, enablers, going to put them into the same trouble that he is putting in right now to the Democrats. Right? Something, again, on your show that I talked about. It's funny, on your show, I've made so many predictions, and I think I'm 9 out of 10 correct. And I want to give you one right now that we talked about, going back to 2022. And I said this again on your show that it's years ago now, 3 years ago, when I turned around and I said, the Dobbs decision was not the end. In fact, I said it was the beginning. I said then that the Obergefell case, even Blassingame, would be next. Let me just be clear to my listeners. Obergefell is a case that's going to be going before the Supreme Court next week that outlaws same-sex marriage. And Blassingame deals with interracial marriage. And now, here we are, because the case, as I said, it's going before the Supreme Court. Did we as a country underestimate how deep this rollback would go as a result of the Dobbs decision?
Yeah, I think in a number of respects it does, and I think of the two cases, Dobbs versus the three. You of course you start with Roe versus Wade and then the Dobbs, but the important thing for people to understand is the I can never say this guy's name. Obergefell, case came first. Right. It's the right to privacy case. It's the case that sets up Roe versus Wade. It is the case that that Dobbs went after, essentially, because once you establish a right to privacy, and there's I think a legitimate constitutional debate as to whether or not the Constitution establishes a right to privacy, if there is such a thing. We now have 50 plus years of precedent in that regard because of the Obergefell case. But yeah, this is an important matter because on the surface, it may look like it's going after, the case before the court is strictly a gay marriage case, but it is more than that because it not only touches on whether or not same-sex marriages are legal, but whether Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife have a legal marriage. And so, this thing is big because once and to be straight up brutal about it, Michael, you have to disintegrate Obergefell. You have to, because if you don't, some future case will reestablish the Roe precedent, will reestablish a right to an abortion, because that is rooted in the privacy of the woman and her doctor, the woman and her significant other, and their decision around whether or not to have an abortion. Just like the right to privacy is tied into the decision between interracial couples to marry. This is be clear. The MAGAverse is about white supremacy. It is about the reestablishment of white people supremely. And that's why the push now among young adults to have babies, telling their young girls, you don't need to go to college. You just need to get pregnant. We need to increase our numbers because we are overwhelmed by black and brown people, as the future predicts. And so if we're going to establish a white America, y'all need to get busy.
But it's more than just a white America. It's a white, Christian, nationalistic America, which is very, very different.
But from my perspective, I got those last 2 points. But at the end of the day, it's about whiteness. It is about the whiteness of it all. Because remember how the country was founded. It was founded on this idea that it could enslave people of color. And so for a lot of people of color like myself, we can get into nationalism and we can get into all this other stuff, which is esoteric bullshit. And you either, are you all the way in or you're partly out, but your whiteness is your thing. And that has been made very clear. Going back to Charlottesville, it has been made very clear where this train is going. And you've got, as the conductor of the train, a man who at the end of the day probably doesn't give a shit one way or the other, because Donald Trump, that's just not his thing. If he can't grift off of it, it doesn't have much value to him. But he's willing to be the patsy for the Stephen Millers and the Russell Vaughts and others who are up in that joint, right? Who are in that space in a big way.
Sure, like J.D. Vance, like
exactly.
Mike Johnson.
He gets the grift, they get the country. And and he's happy with that.
Okay, so because this isn't just about abortion or marriage equality, privacy anymore, I turn around and I surmise that it's about power and precedent. Yes. So isn't the court under Trump's shadow functioning less like a judiciary and more like a political enforcement arm? Because I remember during those Senate confirmation hearings, I remember them asking, will you respect stare decisis on the Roe versus Wade decision? And they lied straight to the American people, not with a blink, snap of a finger. Absolutely. We absolutely believe in stare decisis.
Yeah, they bullshit. They lied.
Oh, yeah. By the way, that question you asked me? Fuck you. All right. We're now going to overturn Dobbs, you stupid assholes. Right. Ha ha. We told you that we were going to get it. Trump's, Republican Senate were going to confirm us no matter what. And so, yeah, we said what we needed to say. I mean, unfortunately, as you know, with the Supreme Court, you can't remove them for being, for fucking lying. But I really do believe that they're acting more like a political enforcement arm than a judiciary.
Well, it's the dark alignment, where you have people who have a certain view of jurisprudence. When you go down this lane of originalism and things like that, that's not a thing. Originalism is bullshit. I mean, you put your finger on the originalist point, which is stare decisis, the precedent of the court. Mm-hmm. It is there for a reason. And even when you look at cases that have been overturned by future courts from the past, or you look at courts that establish precedent, like a Brown versus Board, overturning Plessy versus Ferguson, for example, right? Because black people are not 3/5 a person, right? Or establishing a precedent with Brown versus Board of Education. Yeah, our schools should be integrated because we ain't going nowhere, bitch. So my kids go sit next to your white kid and y'all gonna be happy, right? Because they're trying to get an education and not dealing with your hangups, right? Mm-hmm. So that's that. When you have that, that's what the court has to work with. It has to assess the trend line of the nation in the context of what the Constitution says. When people says the Constitution is this living, breathing document, well, that's sort of kind of a little bullshitty too. But there is a certain level of truth to it in that the Constitution is the ultimate guardrail. And it says Michael and Michael can come on this podcast and they can say whatever the hell they want, right?
Well, not necessarily. Right. As you know, I was unconstitutionally remanded.
I was going to say short.
I refused.
Yeah, short of defamation and getting
and
caught up
and the whim of the president
and the whim of the president. Well, but again, take Donald Trump out of it. That's my point. Take that piece out. You would not have been prosecuted under any other presidency for what you said. That wouldn't have happened. So when you have a retributive player in the mix, then that's where you begin to eat at the true value of the First Amendment and the true value of the Constitution. And to your point, that's where you expect the Supreme Court to step in and go, time out. No, but that's not what this court is doing. And that's not what this court is going to do. I've been telling folks on my colleagues, Simone and Alicia, on our show, don't be surprised when this shit starts falling apart, because this court at the end of the day is going to side with Donald Trump. It just is, because they don't have any other value except what Donald Trump puts in front of them.
And that's what I was just going to say. When I brought my case as an example, and I didn't bring the case because I was seeking some sort of, trophy, or to have my face put on Mount Rushmore, or to have the commemorative coin with me on both sides. I didn't do it for that reason. I did it to ensure that no other American ever gets unconstitutionally remanded to prison because they refuse to waive their First Amendment constitutional rights. I'll never forget my lawyers, including top constitutional lawyer in this country, Lawrence Tribe, turned around and compared it to the Plessy Ferguson case. Simply, saying that this is the 21st century version of Plessy Ferguson. Nobody thought in the wildest imagination that the Supreme Court would not at least hear this case. How is it that the Attorney General of the United States unconstitutionally remands a citizen because he wants to publish a book and talk about it on media? That's straight out of Russia. That's Putin Navalny shit. And so they turned around and they gave a one-word answer to our, God knows, months and months long, preparation of the application and all of the documentation to go before the Supreme Court. Denied, right? And so I'm with you when you say, I don't believe that they have the guts. I don't believe that they have any morals. I think it's sad that this is our Supreme Court, but there has to be a change. And if Americans don't get angry,
Yeah, but Mike,
Right.
I was going to say to your case, I mean, your case is a really good example of how the system has become morally corrupt. They have been corrupted by their view of jurisprudence. They are Trump found the weakest jurists he could to put on the bench. They're not Miss Ketanji Jackson. they're not her. I'm sorry. You may have gone to a fancy law school, but at the end of the day, you don't have the juridical mind to incisively, or to do what the job is. Because you've had cases where Sotomayor has actually stood with the justice, with the majority. Why? Because that was the correct decision based on the facts and the law, et cetera, and the constitutional principle. But you don't have that on the other side. You don't have, you don't have anyone willing, if they applied the Constitution to the facts in front of them regarding the president's behavior, there's no way on this fucking planet they would say that the president of the United States is immune just by saying, oh, it's an official act. And the idea that they would countenance and sign off on an example, if the president decided to have SEAL Team 6 take out one of his political rivals as an official action, that was constitutional, bullshit. And shame on the Supreme Court for ever making that decision. It is against everything that we stand for, and they damn well know it. But they didn't want the smoke from Trump, and they wanted to keep whatever little side games they got going on with all the other, with the donors that plowed them with liquor and cash and hotels and rooms and houses and beach houses and all the other bullshit they get. So the reality for me is there's nothing they can say or do to convince me at this stage that they are a legitimate court. I just don't see it. Tell me where I'm wrong.
You're not. But speaking of reckless power plays, so Trump literally requested to Pete Hegseth to start, or let me rephrase that, to restart nuclear testing.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael, this isn't policy. This is fucking delusion wrapped in danger. All right. What do you make of this?
Well, look, they're all playing, yippee-yi-yay cowboy, right? They're all
playing
out
yippee-yi-yay cowboy with a fucking nuke.
Well, yeah, that's the point. They are immature little boys who got their hands on some pretty big ass toys. And the reality of it is, our system is set up that, yes, we have tests all the time. It's not like we're not testing our nuclear weapons. We have to test them. We have to do the kind of things to make sure that they're operational and that the systems work and that the men and women who run those systems internally know what the hell they're doing, right? We do that.
My days are always nonstop. Meetings, podcasts, deadlines, a little chaos. And by the time I get home, the last thing that I want is a mattress that fights me. And that's why I got the Lisa Hybrid. Let me tell you, it's like my bedroom became a 5-star retreat overnight. The second I hit that mattress, instant peace. It's plush, supportive, not too soft. It cradles you, adjusts to you, and lets me sleep like I didn't even know I could. I slept on a lot of mattresses in my life, believe me, but this one, it's a game changer. I wake up rested, recharged, and ready to take on the day without rolling over to the floor in frustration. And here's the kicker. Lisa makes it in the USA, top-notch quality, and they even give back thousands of mattresses to folks in need. Sleep well, feel good, and do good. So here's the deal. Go to lisa.com, use my promo code Cohen, and get 25% off your mattress, plus an extra $50 off. That's lisa.com, LEESA.com, promo code Cohen. Treat yourself. You deserve it. And hey, tell them I sent you. When the holiday season rolls around, it feels like there's a party every single weekend. And all the sugary drinks, you know what? They add up. Well, this season, I'm going to reach for Soul's out-of-office gummies instead. Same fun, same vibe, low in calories, and zero hangover. Look, I've been taking the out of office gummies for a few weeks now, and let me tell you, they actually work. After a long day of deadlines and meetings, I pop one, and suddenly I feel relaxed, calm, creative, without the groggy, why'd I drink so much feeling. Well, honestly, it's the perfect replacement for those nights when a cocktail would leave me regretting my choices the next morning. Soul isn't just about feeling good, it's about feeling good the smart way. Their products are made from USA grown hemp, vegan, gluten free, low in sugar, and federally legal. It's wellness without compromise, which is something I really connect with. And their new out of office beverage, that's my go to when I want a social vibe without the hangover risk. So take advantage of Soul's Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal now. And for a limited time, get 40% off your entire order. So go to getsoul.com. That's GETSOUL.com and use the code Cohen. That's getsoul.com, promo code Cohen for 40% off. Don't miss their best deal of the year. Go now.
But the difference was in 1993 or so, President George W. Bush negotiated an end to the kind of testing that Donald Trump wants to restart, where we're actually out there blowing up shit underground or in the water, right? And there's no need, we don't need to do that level of testing. Our weapons are sophisticated enough. Look, between Russia and the United States, 90% of all nuclear weapons rest in those two backyards, period. So they have accommodations and they have situations, but that they've worked through. But what Trump wants and what Hegseth wants is to show how big their dicks are. And when you get into that kind of a situation, you invite trouble. To your point, you would begin to invite danger, and problems into the system. There is a reason why we stopped doing it, because we didn't need to do it. Now, there is no reason to restart it, because what it does is invites the level of anxiety. It is not a deterrent, as they claim. Oh, well, we test our weapons. This is a deterrent. No, not necessarily. That's not how that works. I mean, it can be, but again, understand why President Bush said we didn't need to do this anymore. And that type of historical understanding in the context, not just of the times then in the 1990s, when we were at the end of the Cold War, but these times now when we have been in a period of relative peace. Why are we agitating? Why are we trying to, at one time through Donald Trump, cut a deal where he gets, ultimately gets his Hotel Moscow, but at the same time push back in a way where we're reliving the 1950s? And because I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. But with this team, nothing ever does. So we have to strap in a little bit. And you hope that there are people inside the Pentagon, downstream, who are trying to moderate and mitigate this process. But I don't think they're going to be successful in that, because a lot of people, the moment they do, as we just witnessed this week, when you had the two lawyers out of DOJ put out the statement that, hey, there's no crime here to prosecute. They got fired. So this is the world in which we live now.
So look, as the former RNC chair, you were the RNC chair during a time, if I'm not mistaken, when Republican restraint actually meant something.
Yeah.
How did the Republican Party go from Reagan City on a hill to Trump's, I don't know, we'll call it mushroom cloud diplomacy?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Michael. And we need to open up a very, very good bottle of scotch or bourbon.
By the way, I got one. I was gonna save it for a very
really
special
get into
day. This
that
could
one.
be it.
But I think a lot of the top line of that for me is Republicans have danced on this particular pinhead of authoritarianism and faux populism and nationalism, now colored by whiteness, since the 1930s. And it had no ounce. It had, just as it had no answer to Barack Obama, it had no answer to Franklin Roosevelt. And so when the Depression hit, coming off of the Hoover policies of the 1920s, the crash of 29, the Depression by 33, there was no answer, and so it became a grab for power, and so we've since that time danced on that pinhead. We didn't have an answer for the base of the Republican Party at that time, which was the African American voter. Right. Believe it or not, in the 1930s, the base of the Republican Party was African American voters. And they did not have an answer when the economic walls collapsed. And so that led to a series of behavior that gave us, dancing with, the John Birch Society by the 1950s, Nixon's Southern strategy in the 1980s. All of these things sort of fed into this particular grab for power. Trump ultimately came in and said, "I'll help you do that." I think it's important. You know this well. You're very familiar with this quote from Trump when he was asked in the 1980s if he ever ran for president, which party would he pick? And he said the Republicans. He said, because they're dumb as hell. They'll believe anything I tell them.
Yep. And he did say that.
You fall into that trap when you become desperate. And by that time, Republicans had become desperate. They didn't have an answer for when Reagan stepped down. They didn't believe in Daddy Bush, 1,000 points of light. They didn't believe in, Bush Jr.'s, compassionate conservatism. And so here we are. They've been played a sucker. Our leadership is broke. It is woke in its own way, right? It is woke in a nationalistic conservative way. Everything they say about the libs and those of us who push back on their bullshit, they are doing. And that's because they have nothing to offer the country right now except power.
Zero. So look, Mike, as Trump pushes his Senate allies to bend the rules, 42 million Americans are about to lose their SNAP benefits because of this government shutdown. It's very personal to me, by the way. These are working families. These are veterans. These are children. These are elderly. What happens when the government weaponizes hunger? Because that's what we're going to see.
Well, we've seen it, Michael.
Weaponization of hunger.
We've seen it. We've seen it in Russia in the past. The food lines, the bread lines. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what we will realize here. It'll just take a different form. But you're absolutely right. What's circulating right now online are messages from mothers who have special needs children, messages from mothers who are working 2 jobs, messages from moms who are trying to hold their family together, messages from mothers who are the only breadwinner. And they're saying, we can't carry this load. You take away SNAP, you take away Head Start, you take away health care. You are killing my family. And I want to be very clear about this. Please don't buy into the bullshit hype that this is the Democrats' fault. Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the White House. What they need are Democrats, about 3 or 4 Democratic votes. How do you get someone to join you in an effort? You sit down at the damn table, you put something on the table and say, let's negotiate this. What do you want to give me your votes? Democrats have made very clear what they want. They want to protect the healthcare extensions, right? They want to protect the healthcare for millions of Americans.
Which, by the way, let me interrupt for 1 second. That's all Americans. And that's the part that the Democrats, we Democrats are not getting out there enough. That this healthcare extension of the tax benefits, it's not a Democratic program, as Trump and his acolytes and his enablers are saying. It's for all Americans. It's not like you have to check off a box when you're dealing with the Affordable Care Act that says, yeah, I'm a Democrat. Oh, okay. You're one section. I
get special benefits. Right.
You get special benefits. It's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No. But you're absolutely right about it. And that's an important clarification because, again, when you don't have anything to offer, you have to put what you do offer has to be division. And I have to make you choose between my camp or somebody else's camp.
Sure.
What I want versus what they want. And what you want gets consumed by that. And that's where we are right now. And I think a lot of Americans are awakening to the reality that their Monday morning is going to be pretty damn ugly.
Yeah.
When that SNAP program goes away this weekend, when those benefits stop flowing. So
we used to say it, Mike, when I was like in junior high school and so on. I remember it. And then again, believe it or not, when I was in law school in moot court, if you can't dazzle them with your brilliance, baffle them with your bullshit. And that's exactly what our government's all about. They are baffling everyone with their bullshit.
Yeah, this is a difficult period for a lot of families. And I think what I'm curious about for you, I have a question for you, sir, just to turn the tables for a moment. Is we were talking about this on the show the last couple of nights. Donald Trump, instead of being here dealing with the shutdown, Mike Johnson is not opening the House until Donald Trump tells him to. And all of this has to do with the 218 votes necessary to open up the Epstein files. I said from the very beginning of this, free the Epstein 218, because that's at the end of the day what it's about. Seat Adita Grohalva and deal with the consequences of that. But setting that aside, I'm curious from you, my conclusion, because I think, you're a better student of Trump than I am, without a doubt. But my study of the man tells me that now that he's back from his Asia trip, that next week, after a few days of what will be a lot of loud noise around the removal, the killing of these programs, that he begins to move the needle with the Senate, not so much the Senate, to get a deal to open up the government. What do you think?
Oh, I think you're right. As the valedictorian of Trump University, let me be very clear. He can.
All right, folks. I did not expect him to say that.
And I have the diploma in my closet somewhere on the floor.
I did not expect him to say that, people.
Let me be very, very clear on something. You nailed it right on the head. He cannot allow the visuals. Remember, yes. Trump is more of a visual guy than he is of a substantive guy, which is why you see the Qataris giving him a $400 million golden aircraft. Why you see the coins that are going to be the commemorative coin, the 250th anniversary commemorative coin will feature front and back of Trump. It's why you now saw the South Korean, president give him a gold crown and a gold necklace. He likes shiny things. So again, he's a visual guy. Let me tell you the visual he doesn't want. Let me tell you the visual the Senate doesn't want as we approach the midterms. Let me tell you what the House of Representatives do not want as we approach the 2026 midterms. The visual of people standing on bread lines, people standing on food lines and walking away with no food. What he doesn't want to see, people breaking into restaurants or into stores in order to steal a fucking donut, all right, and to steal a cup of coffee. Or knocking over some of these, what do you call it, these street vendors for a fucking hot dog. That's not going to play well for the Republican Party, and it sure as hell isn't going to play well for the president. Let me be clear, and when I said that I have an emotional attachment to this, when I was unconstitutionally remanded, and I talk about it quite a bit, the first 3 days that I was in, on the second time for that, making it 51 days of solitary confinement, they didn't give me any food. 3 days. And I understand what hunger feels like. You know, as a Jew, once a year, we fast in order to remind us of the suffering called Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is tough. Anybody that does Yom Kippur will tell you 24 hours of fasting is not easy. Now do it 3 days in a row, where your bones hurt, your body hurts. You know, you don't even feel it in your stomach anymore. You feel it more in your soul, that despair. Well, I couldn't do shit about it because I was locked up in a room with a steel door with no ability to exit, no ability to do anything. But when you have 42 million Americans, 17 million of which are children, you have no idea what a parent will do to ensure that his kid or her kid doesn't go hungry, okay? And this is not the visual that Trump wants to see. So yes, Mike, you're right. They're going to have to figure out how to make a deal. My fear, though, is that he puts the full Trump, full court press. And I've seen it. I know what that full court press looks like, where you have no choice but to turn around and to do what he says. And that's what Trump is looking to do right now. So yeah, he needed to get out of town to clear his head. He needed, of course, to go get his shiny objects, which he knew he was going to get. But now that they're on the way back, rest assured, these assholes that are around him, who don't give a fuck about Trump's legacy, his name, you know, how his presidency is remembered, they want what they want, and that's to effectuate Project 2025 from Chapter 1 to Chapter 20. That's what they want. So yeah, he's putting right now pressure on all of them. I mean, did you see there was a picture of John Fetterman with Lara Trump? She's got her fingers out like a peace sign. He's got 2 thumbs up, like if he's a bald-headed Trump. I mean, I cannot understand how this guy gets reelected. I really don't. I don't. He's so antithetical.
I don't get the Fetterman thing either. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, let me say this also. The irony here, it's staggering. We're talking about Republicans as a party calling itself, of course, the pro-life party. And what are they doing? Cutting off food and health care, all in the same breath. Yeah. Tell me something. Where's the morality in that?
There is none. This part, there's not a moral vein that runs through this party. The soul of the party is largely gone. The ideals espoused by the flawed men and some women, because we don't elevate a lot of women in this party, in the past, is lost. Despite the flaws of leadership, there was always a moral grounding. There are a lot of things that I could criticize my political hero, Ronald Reagan, for his placating the white supremacist perspective in the 1980 race by launching, his presidential campaign in the heart of Mississippi. Mm-hmm. But you know also that those ideals, to your reference point earlier, of America's a shining city in the hill helps us work through those things. Right now, Michael, we don't have a mechanism to work through this. It's everything everywhere all at once. And it's compounding, and it's a weight that the country, I don't think, can bear. It is deliberate to break it. It is deliberate to control it. It is deliberate to create a MAGA-verse versus everyone else. If you're not there, then you're over on the other side and we're coming after you. And there is no leader right now or leadership among Republicans who have one ball, let alone 2, to stand up and tell this man no. Those of us who have tried have been ousted. The Liz Cheneys have been relegated to the ash heap of Republican history. Others are now watching the administration come after them. If you're a Miles Taylor, for example. So it is backbreaking. But what is so disheartening is the fact that so many Republicans are complicit, and I'm so fucking sick and tired of the private sidebar conversation. Thank you for saying what you're saying on MSNBC. Well, bitch, why don't you get in front of a microphone and say it?
Yeah.
Right?
I like the fact that you use the word deliberate, because you understand the strategies from the inside, and that was your job for a while. Is this deliberate chaos that's meant to drive voters into despair before the 2026 midterms? Or do you think is the GOP just simply losing control of this monster that they created?
Oh, dude, you nailed it. That is both. It's both. They lost control. They lost control of it because going back to 16, when 15 of the 16 on the stage thought that they could, what is Donald Trump? He's not one of us. He's not a political. He's not a governor. He's not a senator. He's not a right? And he beat the shit out of all of them. Look, when you're standing on a stage and a man calls out your wife and you don't step up and punch the hell out of him, you know at that point he got you, right? So the reality of it is both of those things. Yes, it is deliberate, and the consequence of the deliberate effort has been the breaking of the leadership, the controlling of the leadership, weaponizing the base against the leadership.
Ask any small business owner and they'll tell you finances get messy quick. A bank account here, QuickBooks there, tax and invoicing apps stacked on top. And you know what? Before long, you're buried in expensive tools, behind on books, and unsure where your business really stands. And that's why there's Found. Found eliminates the clutter by giving you one platform that handles it all: banking, bookkeeping, invoices, and taxes. No more paying for multiple subscriptions and dealing with clunky, outdated apps. Found identified the tasks that create the most hassle for small businesses. Things like categorizing expenses, preparing for taxes, managing invoices, budgeting, and they built an app that does it all directly from your business checking account. Found makes it easy to regain control of your business finances so you can get back to doing what you love. There's so much stress around juggling multiple apps, chasing receipts, or dreading tax season. Now, imagine what it's like to have everything: banking, bookkeeping, invoicing, and taxes handled in one place. And that's why I love Found, because they make it easy. Found automatically tracks expenses, which means that I no longer have to carve out time every week. Time I could have spent on something much more important, to go through my purchases and to make sure everything is accounted for. If I could go back to when I was starting my business, Found would have been a lifesaver. So take control of your business today. Open a Found account for free at found.com. That's FOUND, found.com. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services are provided by Lead Bank, member FDIC. So join the hundreds of thousands who've already streamlined their finances with Found. Go now.
People forget MAGA represents in every political cycle a portion of the entire base. The rest of the base doesn't show up. When you 22%, 25% of the Republican base shows up and vote in a primary, you're going to get bad players, right?
Yeah.
But that's the nature of the way the politics is running. And when you don't have individuals who are willing to stand in the breach and say no, we have a problem. I miss John McCain. I miss that spirit that is willing to go, nope, right? And thumbs down on the bullshit. But the reality of it is those days are gone. There are no Mitt Romneys. There are no John McCains. There are no Bob Doles. There are no George Bushes. They're not coming to save us right now. And so the party is going to complete its collapse. And what will emerge on the other side of it will either be a phoenix or a turkey. And so we'll have to wait and see on that part. But in the meantime, to your point, it is all deliberate from here on out. It is all deliberate to create the chaos, to create the anxiety, to starve children, or, and then pull back on that. I mean, to your point you made earlier about, he'll come to the table, but how does he come to the table? He ain't go, he's not going to give you all that you want. He'll give you a little piece of what you want just to get you to settle down and to appease you. While he'll pull a bigger chunk from another part of your life. And that's how voters get whipsawed back and forth. And I think at the end of the day, Michael, this all boils down to what happens in 2026. They know they lose the House, which is why they're doing the mid-season.
Maybe. I keep telling people, do not accept it as a foregone conclusion.
That's my point. Well, but I'm just working off of what the internal numbers are saying they are. I don't know how a voter is going to vote. I don't know how everyone thought that we wouldn't be here in 24, but 10 million people didn't show up. So there you are.
Those internal numbers never meant anything to me, as you know.
Well, they may not mean anything, but they are significant they don't reflect turnout, but they do reflect what people are thinking and what their attitude is. So turnout is a different model. It's a different situation. So I'm not going to poo-poo the internal numbers that say you have a problem. Now, the question becomes, what do you do about solving the problem? But doesn't mitigate against the fact that you got a problem. And right now the Republicans have a problem, which is why they're doing the midterm redistricting, trying to steal 19, 20 congressional seats, thinking that to your point, that those are going to be automatic red seats for them. They may not be, for a whole host of reasons that we could get into. But the reality of it is the deliberate effort to change the course of that election is underway. The end game, though, I don't think they want to have an election at all. I think the Venezuelan incursions, I think the threats that are being made to some of our global partners, the efforts that are being made to disrupt are to create enough friction within the center of things that by next spring, to your point about how people respond when there's no food, that's what they want. If people are rioting, if people are mad because there are bread lines, they don't have access to healthcare, et cetera, what better way to invoke the Insurrection Act? What better way to invoke martial law than on the heels of citizens responding to your treatment of them? And then suspending the 26 elections.
It's all about state control, right? Because you talk a lot on your show about authoritarian drift between ICE raids, judicial capture, the dismantling
ICE
of
is
federal
nothing more
programs.
than a Gestapo right now. They're acting like a Gestapo right now.
I totally agree. The dismantling of federal programs.
Yep.
You think that we're looking at the slow normalization of state control?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. You've already seen it. I mean, the fact that what's already happening does not have the kind of response that you would think it would have. So when you see ICE disrupting a kids event and arresting children, and you're not moved, and we're like, well, they must be illegal. Well, it's not me.
Well, you got Kristi Noem, who gets up there. They literally said, she lied also directly to the American people. No Americans have accidentally been detained or deported or anything like that. They're rounding up people in the street. They're going to the courthouses where people are in the process of applying for their asylum rights. They are detaining migrants for these minor infractions. And Kristi Noem, well, she gets 2 more airplanes while people are going to be going hungry. So,
yeah,
look, Mike,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, I'm nauseated by the whole thing. But as I said to you, the hour unfortunately goes by because I got about 1 million more questions for you, and I'm sure I'm going to get you back here. But I want to end with this, Mike. I want to end with this. You've seen the Republican Party's soul up close. And everything that we've watched, everything that we're watching right now, every single day, you go to bed to chaos, you wake up to chaos. And by the way, during the time that you wake up and you go to sleep, your life is filled with more chaos. The cruelty, the power grabs, the grifting, the moral collapse.
Right.
Is there anything left to save? Or is the GOP now permanently welded to Trump's authoritarian vision?
Oh, I think it is. I think it is finally settled into the thing that it had been trying to become since, like I referenced before, the 1930s. I think it's finally there. In each of those prior moments in the Republican history, there were leaders who stood up and pushed back and said no, or rerouted the course. Bob Dole in his 96 convention, castigating those who were trying to sidebar racism. John McCain in his 2008 race, clarifying for not just the country, but especially for the Republican Party, that Barack Obama was not some foreigner just because he was black. And was due respect because he was a good man running for president. Those voices are gone. They've been silenced. Mitt Romney, in his 2012 campaign, again, trying to, hold up a beacon of leadership, for a country that was beginning to split, as we saw out of the Tea Party, era and the Occupy Wall Street era, where those extremes were beginning to pull at both parties. They weren't successful on the left, but now that's changing. I mean, we see what's happening in your great city of New York with a Democratic Socialist running for mayor. I have no opinion on that other than to say, wait and see how New Yorkers vote, right? Because that, at the end of the day, Michael, is the core of our system. I may not like your candidate. I may think he's full of shit. I may think he's wonderful. Doesn't matter what I think. I don't live there. But does matter what you think and what you say about who the next leader of your city should be. If we give up on that idea, then our elections mean nothing. And that's where Trump wants to pull us, where every election is suspicion. Every election is, can be fixed for a different outcome if you don't like it. And that undermines the core of what we stand for. And when you've got a political party that is now turned over its mechanisms, its operations, its money, and its soul to that purpose, you don't recover from that. I don't know what the GOP looks like, in 10 years, 20 years. I know what it looks like now. It is not the party that I joined back in 1976. It is nowhere near that. And, I joined it knowing what its flaws were. Today, when you join it, you're joining it because you're buying into misogyny and racism and authoritarianism and white nationalism. And you're prepared to paint yourself yellow for Trump because what? You have no other value? What do you value? Because you have to ask yourself, what are they offering you? Oh, I got it. Gold LeMay sneakers and cryptocurrency that you can't afford to buy. But that's where the party finds itself. And it's unfortunate. There are those like me who stay in it because A, it pisses them off. B, I still think that that thread of value, still matters to level up so that instead of a turkey rising, a phoenix can find some flight, in the future, but we'll see.
Well, Mike, you make us all smarter. That's for sure. You're like MSNBC.
I appreciate you, brother.
You're like
too,
MSNBC's Yoda.
No, dude.
You are very wise, my friend.
We
Very,
love
very
having
wise.
you on our show because you are clarifying in the moment. And I think that's something, and I said this, I've been saying this for a few years now that you and I have been partnered together in various conversations. And I do use, you are a reference point. Y'all need to listen to Michael Cohen. He was in the room where it happened. He was in the room and saw how it happened. He was in the room and saw how they planned
I'm
the happening.
embarrassed to say, Mike, I helped to build the room.
You helped to build the room. So when the brother who had a hand in the architecture tells you what to look out for, y'all need to wake the hell up and pay attention, because he ain't just saying it out of spite. He's not saying it out of personal grievance. He's saying it because he gives a damn about his country, and he gives a damn about your kids' future, because his kids are part of your kids' future. And so the reality for the moment is, we all need to wake up and listen to those who have the experience of Trump, who can give us some guideposts to navigate through his bullshit and come out on the other side a stronger America instead of a Trump America.
Amen to that, my friend. Thank you for joining me as always, and I look forward to returning to your show as well.
Absolutely, my friend. You take care of yourself.
The same.